Hi everyone, welcome back into the classroom. Well, today I'm going to do basically a landscape, but I just got to put an elk up in the front. I'm sorry about it. I drew up the original. I went over and got a reference photo off of Adobe Stock, which I like to use, and it has this beautiful spring kind of scene, the melting snow, and a mountain back here, which I absolutely love. And I just had to put an elk in here. You don't have to have them if you want. You can even put in a edge of a small lake right here or a stream coming through, you know, whatever you want to do. You have lots of videos that I've done that show you all different kinds of ways. But I want to call this the Sentinel. Let him look at that. And I might put a few other little elk back up over here in the shadows of this. So there's a reference photo up there that I have. This is a board. This is a 1/4-inch board, which I gave 2 coats of the canvas prep medium to, and then sanded it with 180 grit sandpaper. It is a 24 by 18, so this is more of a standard size. You can easily do this on a canvas or a canvas board if you want as well. Okay, just make sure you fill up the weave just a little bit, because we're going to have some detail here if you're going to do the elk and up onto this mountain, and you don't want to fight the weave too much. So no large weave canvases, and I think you'll be okay. So, and then I might put another mountain back here. You can see over there's some distant clouds, and that one cloud just hitting on the top of the mountain. So I might put a mountain back here and a layer of clouds between. I might put a little bit of mountain mist right here, which pushes that back just a little bit more. Let's get into it and let's see. For my palette, this is my standard palette color, the Dave's favorite. Put out some extra white. I will probably need a little more white than this as well. But all the listings of all the colors are down in the video description for you, okay? So you can grab that. And I paint with the Heritage Multimedia. And those of you that follow along with stuff I use, this is a paint that I developed back in 2008. So it's been out for quite a long time. And it is all the techniques. Everything you see on this particular channel has been painted with that paint, and it's acrylic paint, and it's all I use to paint, okay? But like for today's lessons, if you're an oil painter, you can paint with oils. I touch my colors and stuff, and if you use oils, don't do that. Just use your brush to do the softening, okay? All right. So I'm going to work out here first onto the sky. I'm going to drop the sky down over the mountain, because that will help me get a little bit of atmospherics, and which is what I want. And you've seen me all different kinds of ways to do atmospherics with you. So first, let's set up a bit of the sky. So I'm going to take, probably not that much. I'm going to create a value, basically a value scale of the light sky here. So I'm going to just mix up some of this, and then we'll look on the scale and see where we are. Your value scales are so helpful. And what you have to do is remember, with acrylics, they dry about one value darker. So here on my value scale, see, it's lighter than there. It's right about that, and it's a little darker than what it is there. So it will probably dry right between a 6 and a 7. And on the actual photo, it's quite dark. I mean, your 6 is going to come right up in here in the midground. So if you want to start like that, this is a great way to start. I'll take my big brush, and, you know, it's going to dry down to about a 6, and we know this area of our sky, I just added a little bit of extender. My brush is really wet with water because I just cleaned it. Not really need to have that much in it, but I'm going to pull this down a bit here. You know me, I like to use paper towels and atmospherics and stuff like this. So I'll add some of that, and this thin color just goes over this mountain just to help push it back, the atmosphere of it. Okay, and I'll take this up a little heavier up here. So I'll go a little bit thicker. I am going to paint with a lot of paint today. There's still quite a bit of water in my brush. I forgot to wipe that out, so I'm just going to take some of that out here. I like to paint with thick paint, you know, this. So we'll push this in here, nice and thick paint, and then we'll lighten it up at the bottom here. And we're not going to be done. We're going to, you know, work some clouds and some atmosphere and stuff like that in this. We got a long ways to go. But I'm going to put a little more blue and a little bit of that blue violet into this here. And if you want, you can add a little extender. I'm not doing it because it's going to keep it wet. I'm not interested in really keeping it too wet here because I'm going to paint this mostly acrylic, pure acrylic. So, but having a little extender, the reason why I like the extender is it just causes the colors to slide here. Let's also just go a little bit more blue. So you see the difference here between the blue with a little bit of violet and then the phthalo blue by itself. And see, that just creates, see, I like that. That just creates, when you do this, when you play that blue violets, and you don't always use this big long strokes, lots of casual X marks and stuff like that. You create that atmosphere through the painting, which is what I really like. And so you can see I'm getting real close to that dark now. You see, now, why would you want to create the sky so dark? You can create the sky really light, like I see sometimes, and sometimes really dark. Now, the really dark will contrast against the mountain. So, for example, here, let me just do this. Okay, so if I come in here and I put this really dark right in there, and I'll take a little bit of water onto the paper towel, and if I pull off the snow of that mountain, you're going to see it's going to get a lot of contrast to it, see, about the contrast that you have up there. But then that amount of contrast is going to make that mountain here the center of interest of the painting. So that's something to keep in mind. Now I'm just going to lighten this back up a bit back here and let that sky just kind of take over that up in here. Now we can, you know, we can model in clouds and do all kinds of fun stuff in there as well. I can take some light with this blue. Sometimes I like these clouds to be slightly grayed, so I just poke into a little bit of the burnt sienna here, which will warm it and gray it slightly, you see. And you can slide some of that. This is the way I really like to do it. And we might put some other mountain back there. But I'm just going to, let's rinse that blue out of that brush. It's in there pretty heavy because I put up thick paint. And I'm just going to do this. I rinsed it real quick, get rid of some of that moisture because that's your solvent, so you don't want too much of that. And I'm just going to whisper in like this a bit of that gray I just put on into it, and that will create some of the back atmosphere that I want to have there. I love to create the atmosphere to do this kind of stuff with my knife. You can also use your brush, but I like the knife because, see, I can jump it like this and get these wispy areas of clouds here. So I hold the knife very flat and just push it and slide it along here like this, and it just creates some of those back areas, and then you can just pull through. Now, you've seen with the last one I did see, you get that real nice wispy look of that. The last one I did, sometimes I pull down, you know, with the when I did the bird. You know, if you haven't watched that hawk that I did, the Fergus hawk that I did, you should watch that one because I put a lot of clouds up there and really showed some different ways to get. Matter of fact, the Fergus hawk, it's back there. So I have a lot of cloud movement and stuff like that. So if you haven't watched that one, it doesn't make a difference if you don't like painting hawks or not. You're looking for the techniques, and it's a very different technique that I use on those clouds and those back mountains, and pulling the direction of the brush one way or another to give you some of those looks. But this will set up some of that light misty stuff that I have back there. I'm going to let this dry down, and we'll go to work right on the mountain, okay? All right. So let's come in. So this is going to be really all in this right here. Matter of fact, you can poke a little bit of this. This is the open medium, okay? This is the Diarylide open medium. And I can just take that right into all of this color. This will make really nice color for snow later on. And if I poke a little open medium or stuff into here, mix it up, or you can even add just a little bit of the extender medium in here. Let's just poke that in and just shove all of that right up over here, because that's good color for us to use later on here. we'll just save that for helping us with the snow and stuff here in just a moment. Okay, so, but let's go in, and now we also have to make warm snow. So this will be our cool areas. And for warm snow, a lot of artists, a lot of the master landscape painters really head towards, and I've done this with you several times, we head towards an orange. So I'll make a nice orange, a little bit of Hansa, and some Hansa, and a little bit of the Naphthol Red Light. If you want that more toned down, you can use some yellow oxide with that, which tones that down. But you take the tiniest, so I'll clean most of this off of my knife, the tiniest bit here, and it just creates a subtle warmth. And you can, I know that it's hard for the camera to pick up this real subtle warmth here, but it's also creates a beautiful contrast between the warm and the cool when you're making snow and stuff. So that's going to be very nice. That's my warmest, lightest that I'll have there. So, and I don't need that right yet, but that's where I'm going to have, and I'm going to paint the snow and the mountain right in between here. Okay, so let's go take, and I'll find the absolute perfect brush. I had one just a second ago here, and using it. Where did I set that? Oh, here it is right here. So what I'm going to do, this is my number 8 brush, my 8 Fusion Flat. And what I'm going to do is set up some light and darks within the mountain. So just some areas that I can see. I'll take some blue and some burnt sienna here. Blue and burnt sienna, and I'll add just a little bit of open medium or a little bit of extender, either one, and we'll just create this kind of, not quite a complete shadow here, but I'm going to come in and mark, pulling down in the direction which will set the feel of the mountain. So there you can see up over there, there's a big cut in the mountain. As a matter of fact, it cuts down this way. Sometimes I will come through the entire mountain and paint it, and sometimes I will do this. What I'm doing too, I'm going to take just a little bit of this warmer snow here, and I'll take, because I just love painting mountains, and I don't always paint them the same, so that my techniques change, and I love to change the techniques, the way I paint. So I will just put in a little bit of light and dark. That's all I'm looking for. And I try not to add any textures at this point. You don't want textures. We want fun movement, but we don't want textures. And I'm looking, just like when you see me paint the hawk or the bird, or, you know, like I just finished that kingbird, you know, one of the earlier lessons here a few days ago. I don't look for you know, the light and the complete light and dark. I'm looking for a mid-tone, an undertone, a color that is not as light, or the final color. I'm looking for one that I kind of see underneath there. So this one will have a bit of it chasing right there across the top, coming down here. This is this light side of this mountain here. And see, I just love to do that and leave a little bit of the markings there. And that's what we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to constantly keep a dirty brush here of some of the blue burnt sienna, which is some of the colors of the mountain that I want to use here. And like right up in here, I'll hold my knife, this brush very flat, and drag like this. See this dragging that you get here? You can hear the ferrule of the brush scraping over the surface. And what that does is it gives you this highs and lows. Now, I've also done this, and you've seen me for years do this with the palette knife, with the painting knife. And for those of you that are newer, this is actually called, we all call it a palette knife, but it's actually a painting knife. See the Z band that's in it. And that's so you can get your hand here, and so you can use it really flat. And that's what we want. So sometimes I will just load it up, take a little bit of it, and I'll look, and I'll add with just some marks here of this through the painting knife and see the subtle little differences you get in between that. So by working both the painting knife and the brushes, and maybe a couple different kinds of brushes, you can get some excellent techniques to your mountain, okay? And there's sometimes that I do it really fast, you know, the old, you know, everyone always uses the Bob Ross way of painting mountains. Well, Bob Ross, I painted at the same time Bob Ross, and we learned from a man named Bill Alexander, who was the actual man that created the magic white and did all these stuff with these mountains. And they're all beautiful. And then Bob Ross took it to his own look and stuff. But they create this model color, and they pull a little bead, and you pull down. And I did that for years and years. But see, you can create, even with your knife, just dragging it on that surface like that. And then the more you drag on it, see, we can emulate what's going on over there. The more you drag on it, the more interest you're going to be giving it, but the more full it is. Let's take a little bit of dirty, cooler light and just push that in as well. And you don't, and see, this is what happens here. See this right in here. Now, it's okay. But see what happens when my wet white hits the wet blue. They kind of blend. They create that intermediate tone. And I don't always like that. And so I like the dragging effect that you get from the drier acrylics. That's one reason why I like to paint acrylics. I want this to kind of dry up. And I might work across the whole width of my mountain here. See, that's going to be pretty light there. And I want to come a little closer to emulate it. Now, see, I'm a little heavier there. So I wipe my knife so it's clean, and I just scrape over it. See, if I get too heavy, I scrape, and I'll drop back. And see, this will create all the subtle little nuances that you'll have in your mountain. Does that make sense? Now, there's a larger, whitish, not pure white, but we can get a little bit warmer light. Don't go to pure white yet. Keep it down around maybe an 8 here. And let's just put in this side relief here. See, and then I can push this up and down. This is where I like to push it up and down a bit. I can tap it through there with my knife. But, you know, if you want to keep this really nice, clear, like colors here and stuff, you don't want to do it while it's too wet. So you can keep some of this nice individual look to the mountain that we have up there. So I'm going to keep a little bit of that. And this is a little wet, but I'll just show you. So the knife here, see, I can just lightly use the tip of this knife and push some of that in there. And especially when it starts to dry up, see, I can paint back and forth between my lights and my darks and give myself a little bit more interest right in there and put some of that little rough stuff you see right up over there. So all kinds of fun ways. And then I'll go back and forth and, you know, go grab where I just set it back down here. So we'll just grab another one here. I just set my brush out here. I have this little pile right here. It is right here. I have this little pile right here. And I normally don't have this many brushes out. But my daughter came out from our studio out in Pennsylvania, brought all kinds of new brushes and stuff. And I'm like, ooh. So she brought me a whole new load of brushes and everything. So I was like, oh, you got to have them all out. So I'll put a bit of this. See, I love the look also of the brush. And the brush does some wonderful things there as well into this mountain. And you can get all kinds of nice looks. Let's put a little warmer right up in here. Let's go up towards this peak right here with a little bit of warmer light pressure. Use different parts of your brush. Tap some of that in there. Use some different parts of your brush to create some of the different valleys and ridge lines and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll just let that blue atmospheric color from the back of the board that I first put in just stay there too. Let's put a bit more light right up here onto the tip. That's it. So the light in this painting is coming from the left, here. So, and then the shadows coming from the right. So we have to do that. So we have that. Now we're also going to put in our bluish color here, which if you look at the shadows here on the mountains are mostly the bluish color. So we'll push some of this blue in, which will be the shadow, the blue of our sky, which takes the mountain colors right in. Let's see, we got to put a little more light up onto that. So we'll get a bit of that blue right there and a bit more of the light. So this is a little different way to paint the mountain than you see me do in other ones as well. And it's a real fun way because it just gives you all this roughness that you can have. Let's take some of this dirty. And I love it when it starts to tack a little bit. It gets kind of sticky. That's when it gives you really great looks, you know, to the, see how it just sticks. And so the more I touch it, let's just restate that. The more I touch it, the more it's going to, you know, stick in an area and stuff. So we want to get that blue shadow in there. We want some of this, which is, and we've got to get it a bit greenish in a bit so that we get some of that tree look to it. But let's put some of this in first. A little bit more here, a little bit more right up on these ridge line right here. And don't try to copy it too much because then your mountain will get too stiff. Just use your mountain and stuff there to get an idea. Let's put a bit of the blue shadow here coming down this side here. Right in with that darker color there. Push that in. Okay. So I have that main ridge line right there. I really need to get that other side. And then this one right here, I've enhanced it just a touch more, a little bit bigger. I can take it down, but I like it just like, kind of like that. So I don't always follow it exact. And when I'm going further out on the edges, I might thin this out so it doesn't have as much power and it slides, and I'll get just a little bit more blending and softness to it. And that will, you can see this has a lot of interest and see that doesn't. Does that make sense? So I'm pulling the viewer's eye in here, and that has everything to do with what we call edges, okay? With making edges. So, and I might just soften a nice soft look right up in here and push some of that right back there. Keep those edges a little softer going off on that side of the mountain. Let's go a little more edge right up in here because we have some edges right here. So I just use the tip of the knife and just push it down and slide it up onto its chisel. Pull through, scrape through a little bit here. And just add some of those little rocky edges there like that. Maybe scrape and slide like this. You see, you get different. That's the whole thing, guys, is you've got to figure out ways to create different little looks, see? And I really want that viewer to come up here, so let me put in this larger light and then we'll divide it up with some shadows and stuff. Let's take a little bit, not pure light. I don't want to go to my super warm yet. You can see I'm still a little bit more gray. Let's put in this slide down this side here, okay, and I'll just push that up right like that to get some of that snow. So I'm looking right down through there, and we'll grab some of this beautiful little edging right in here. That this is that line we want to create all kinds of. I love this on the mountain. There's some horizontal uplifts right there, and they're really neat looking here. So, and they're going to go right up to here, right in there. So we're going to want to keep that horizontal look into there, but right up in here there will be some more, and we'll soften that, just a touch of light into that, just a little softer, And this is really wet, so it's kind of hard to do this. It's actually, if you're a beginner, better to let this dry for just a second, because you have to use a super light pressure with your knife so that they don't blend as much. If it's a little bit drier, it's easier. And I'm just going to tap some of the motion, the movements that I see here in that other little bit of the mountain there, like that, okay? And so I'm looking at those guys right in there, see? And so you can have some really nice fun. Let's take a little bit of this softer. There's a few angles right in here that are just right at that angle. I just love this mountain. When I saw it, I went, ooh, I want to paint that mountain. And there's one I really want to do with you guys. And I know, you know, I just love painting mountains, especially after I figured them out. And, you know, not as many on your channel. You really like the roses and stuff, and I understand that. I do too. I love the roses. I'm a rose painter. But boy, when you start understanding the angles, the contrast, the edges and stuff of painting a mountain, and how to draw the viewer in here and soften them out for here, because see, I'm bringing that viewer right in here. It's going to help your roses a lot more, right? But there's one I really want to paint. I have this beautiful snow-capped Mount Hood that I've always, you know, I grew up around Mount Hood up in Oregon, and I just love it. And I want to paint it with you guys. And hopefully I'll do it with you guys here this year, this summer. I want to do it. And, you know, hopefully if you want to see it, we'll do it. You know, otherwise, if you don't want to see it here on the channel, I'll put it in a class, and I'll just take my students there. But you learn so much, guys, from painting mountains. Now, I want to leave this kind of here. I want this down here a little softer, so I'm going to take some of this light right into here. So now the color that I put on here blends out a little bit more and will be a bit softer, if that makes sense. And I'll pull down at some of the angles that I want to see that mountain color going there. And I'll slightly do this, chunk it up a bit. Okay, now to make that really mist, since a lot of this is dried down here, to make that real mist, what we do is we just take our bigger brush with a little bit of water and pull through slightly and pull it down, and that will put that misty, softer look to it. See, that's why I love the acrylics, because I can still get that misty, softer look to it. They're pulling that down. And of course, if I want it even softer, I mist in a little bit of light into that here, just a bit. But then you reduce the amount of water in your brush, going a little bit drier, and you can do some of the final little softening. Tap it through up into some of these areas where you want those edges a little bit softer, and you'll get that more misty, and then all of a sudden your eye goes boom, right up there into the mountains. Does that make sense? It's a little different than painting in oils, and I painted mountains in oils for years, and I just love the acrylic way because I'm controlling watching the drying and stuff of the acrylics. So I got that look in there. There's a few more little interests that I could add, little marks up here by the peak of the mountain. And see, now that that's dry right there, I can just drag this right there, right over the surface of it, and add that little bit of mark. And if it's a touch too much, all I have to do is grab some of that shadow and then just go right over it a bit and take some of it out. And that's when you can get some of those really nice looks to the mountain here, see? And it really, really works. Let's go back here. Let's see. Let's take a look at the mountain here for a second where we are. I want a little more blue. I always like to keep my shadows up and going pretty well too, because that affects the rest of the coloring. So let's add that little ridge there. Let's add this softer little one right in here, right in there. Okay. And to make a softer one, you just add a bit of light to it or reduce the pressure on your brush. Let's pull, that's a little heavy right there. So I'll just add a little light to it, pull down to give that softer look right there. And then we're going to come over to some darker ones here. So let's go blue burnt sienna right in here, more ridge lines here. A little bit of blue into that. We'll soften that and also put it a bit more in shadow. See, it's a little bit different. But see, all of that original blue from the sky that I did here earlier, it's doing some of the painting in that. Does that make sense? It's doing some of the painting in that area there. And so that's why it's so important. Now, I'm going to thin this just a bit. Now, the reason why is because I want this to slide along here so I don't get quite as much interest. I want it to slide out softer. Does that make sense? So I thin it down and let it mix up onto the surface here. And so that what that does is, you see, it keeps my interest right up in here into the mountain. And again, I'm just like working it over there. I'm softening that out. And like I showed you on that hawk there, that hawk, towards the end of that hawk, if you don't watch anything on that hawk, go over and watch the last like 10, 15 minutes of that hawk. I show you how to put atmosphere back into a mountain pushback by taking some of this sky. It's another good reason to always save your sky. Okay, save some of that sky back over there here towards the end of that video and push that back with that sky. Okay, so now let's come back in here and let's work some of that light snow in between. We have some of it already showing up just because of the natural nature of the, of what we had there earlier. Let's just add, not that real light, let's just add some more grayed snow. See, and this is dry in here, so it's easy for me just to take this and scrape the surface slightly here and add those, enhance those horizontal lines right there, and a bit of that. I want to capture some of that ridge line there, and then the snow line right below it here. So, and if you take out too much, like I just kind of did there, I'll just come back and just pull down and work a little bit more. That's a little too blue for me, a little more burnt sienna. Now you can paint this a lot faster, if you can paint this, more pure alla prima and stuff if you want to, and go a lot faster. But I just love painting this. Ever since I did that real large one with you, Slide Lake, if you haven't seen that one, go watch that one. Slide Lake really changed the way in which I perceive and paint a lot of my mountains and stuff. Now let's put this angled in here. A little bit of dragginess here. You can see I just find that edge here. That's a little too much right there. Take that off. A little bit of that draggy. I want that to help pull the eye back up over here too. And so you can see I'm working on that little ridge there, but there's not quite that much there. So I'll just take the tip of the knife and just take a bit of that out here. Just scrape and do a little bit there, put that out. But I really like that extra little bit of light right there. So now this is where I would reach up. Let's look and put some of our lightest snow up, because this is a left-leaning ridge line here. So it's going to get a lot of light right there of the sun hitting it right there, right like that. So, and let's take some of this snow. I like it very dry, so I pinch wipe all of the moisture out of my brush. And you can use a smaller brush, it's a lot easier. Let's put some light right up in here. And now you will really see where that dark blue sky can create that interest there on that mountain, see? So it's really kind of a great way, a fun way here. Let's tap a little more light, to really just like drive that interest right in there. And when I first started painting, boy, this would take me weeks to do something like this. And now I can see it. That's the whole thing with most of us painting, is just being able to see what it is that we're looking at. And now I can see the mountains a lot easier than when I first started, and I paint them a lot easier now and quicker. Just like roses and everything, guys. It's just practice. Don't ever say, I can't do it. It's just practice. That's all. Paint it again and again and again. You know, and I'm going to put a little more light up over here. Let's just drag that out, but we'll keep the whole presentation softer. Maybe just a bit more right up here. Boom, right up there. Tap a little bit. That helps give you little broken marks and stuff and some interest. So if I was copying that mountain, I would have a little lighter shadow. Well, maybe we'll do that. We'll take a lighter version of our shadow, maybe a little bit of grayness into it, because you can have multiple lightnesses to shadow here. And we'll just lighten that just a touch here. There we go. I like that. Maybe a little more drag light through some of that area there. Just increase, and every time I touch that, you see, it increases the interest there. But let's add a little bit right in here, some of that pull down. And I'm kind of really liking that, so I might not lighten this up in here quite as much as you see on the original. I might, so I'm just pulling down slightly to create that striations in the rock and stuff there. But let's just model all this up together here and pull this lighter down from there to give that, because we'll pull down from the mountain there. And let's thin. Anytime I want something soft, I thin a little bit of the gray, a little bit of this light. I just model this onto the knife, and let's just paint this thin down in here. Just like this, and I'll push my finger. And if you're using oils, don't push your finger. You know, don't touch your oils. And then we'll bring that down a little bit here, and some of that blue in there is okay, but it should go a little bit grayer as it goes down. And just let some of that model off there. And we'll paint this mostly thin all out through here. And maybe pick up a little bit of light and a little blue and just pull it through. See, most of our work is done, so we can just do this and it'll look like other mountains. We got to maybe put another mountain back there. And most of our work is done. It's pulling you right into there. Does that make sense? And yeah, it really does work. I might take just an extra little bit of textury white just to hit this ridge line right there. There. Like that. Just to say I hit that. And I maybe a little bit more here down that side. Here. Right down in there. Just smear it around a bit. That looks pretty good. Right in there. So it's not an exact copy of it, but I kind of really captured the feel of it. That's what I like to do. I don't like to get too wrapped up in copying, but a good feel of it. Let's take a little cooler, dirtier white here. And right up in here, we'll add some more here, ridge line kind of right in there. And then, you know, you can take some of this and just drag over it to create the look of trees, tree line, extra little interest in there. Just drag over it. Sometimes I use my knife, sometimes I use my brush, and that's what gives you that interest. Let's just, so like with my brush, let me just show this. Like with my brush, I'll take this, a little bit of it, and I like to use the edge of it up and down like this, which will give you that, you know, you'll see the highs and lows, and it'll start to look like little trees right there, see? And so back up over here, as I get lower in elevation down, that's when I can start some of my up and down here to start looking like some of the movements of trees here. Here like that. Okay. And of course you get the blue, burnt sienna. You can add that green in there now too. And I'll keep this a little thin. This also works really, really nice for this. The open medium also works really nice in there. And so I'll just start to add some of my up and down movements here. And I like to use like an 8 or a 10 because you can see I'm moving it from side to side. That's a little too green. So let's get back to a touch more blue into that. That blue, the addition of the blue gives you the distance because that's the atmosphere, right? So a little bit of this up and down. Sometimes I use my finger with that. Okay, and I don't want to get that too light, too dark right there because I want to keep that atmosphere, that misty kind of look there. But we'll thin it out as we come right down in here. Quick little movements here, short. Because remember, each one of the movements is like a tree, so keep it short, a little blurry there, okay? And maybe a little bit out through here. There we go. And they're just really fun to paint, and as long as I concentrate in there, and then now I'm just smearing it out through here. So, and that's what I want to do is just smear it out, thin it out, thin it out. Add some of your sky color here so that this all stays softer. And you just want little movements of scrubbing movements of your brush. In the old Dutch masters, which this whole technique comes from, and we use this in like painting a lot of fruit, like peaches and stuff. When you're putting the fuzz on the peaches and everything, they used a lot of these types of movements. And when you're doing it with a light color, it was called scumbling. And today, a lot of artists, they use techniques called scumbling. Scumbling, normally the definition is a light value, but like the Dutch and the artists of old, we used all different kinds of values for doing it. Let's take a lighter blue and see, I can just push in. Even though I do this, I can take my blue here and I can still put in ridge lines and shadows and stuff like that, even right through the scumbling here. I can still give the ideas of shadows, light and shadow here. And I'm going to simplify everything because I don't want this mountain to be too complicated. We have a beautiful elk I'm going to paint on top of it. But maybe a little bit of the light, a little bit of our warm, just little touches of it here to just bring that down. I don't want to get too much detail because I want to leave that little misty thing that we did. Leave it a little bit not as clear cut as the values in here. So, this, you can drag some of this up for some of the shapes of the mountains there. Okay. Drag some of this. Let's drag that little line there. There we go. And thin. Sometimes as you want less impact, thin it out. So we'll thin some of this. Maybe let's increase that blue right here. Maybe a little more blue right there. So you can see the blue gives you nice light and shadows. And you don't need to get super perfect with anything here. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to set right back here, further mountain back. Now, the question is, do I want to keep that light soft, which I think I might. So I'm just going to take some light here. Let's just gray this up. here. No, I haven't ruined it, guys. Don't worry. Okay, and we'll put this cloud in. Okay, and wait, why am I doing this? Because I want this cloud to sit a little bit up in front here, right? But I also want this cloud, you got to think with it, just like the blue, I painted into the blue, you want to paint this mountain into the cloud. Does that make sense? That's going to push it back, okay? So let's get a little softer mountain colors back here. Just what we used before, but a little softer, and a little sky color. Why the sky color? Because that is the atmosphere, right? So we'll push another little mountain right back here. Boom. And see, I think that just adds. And we'll let that cloud, we're going to push this cloud right there up in front of it, right? So to this side will be a little bit of the shadow. And we don't want to have very many edges. We want to keep this all soft. Overall, basically, real quick light and darks and softness to it because we want it to go back. Does that make sense? And I just did 3 perfect little ridge lines there, so I'm going to take some of that off there. And a little bit of the light, but it's got to have some atmosphere with it. So a little bit of the blue here as well. Here. So a little bit of that light and atmosphere, because everything's going back, right? So a little bit of that here. There we go. Just a bit of it. And maybe a touch of this. I'm going to leave the blue from the sky that is already there, pretty heavy, as the shadow, the snow shadow. So I don't think I really will add too much of the snow shadow back in there. And then I'm going to take some water into this brush and blur this all a bit here, because we're going to want this other gray to come up in here, right? And maybe a bit of the light color that will form like little clouds and stuff up in here. Here we go. And we can take some of this thin cloud right up a little higher, right up in here, so the viewer gets the perception of that. That one's just sitting back there. It's kind of really neat. And, you may want to come in here and do all kinds of fun little things there, but the more you do on it, the more it comes forward. So you have to be, you have to think about that. Now, I can bring how much detail I do into the front of this now will determine how far forward this mountain starts to come, or that pushes that other mountain back. So if I add a little bit more trees up in there, that'll do it. If I add just a little bit maybe of some ground movement back there, just a touch, but trees right along here. So vertical movements here with a slightly darker color will bring it forward and push that mountain further back. Does that make sense? So right into there. So now that mountain really goes back there. Let's take some of this lovely gray. Let's just push a soft little cloud right back here, back behind the mountain. Over there, that'll also play against the trees that I want to do. Now, what you think about every time, even though you're painting a cloud, you think about light and dark, light and shade. So even on a cloud over here, you're going to have a highlight side and a shadow side to it here. Okay, so you will want to suggest the light side and the shadow side, even though you're painting a little cloud back there, right? Now, through here, we had the bigger clouds. Do you want to do those yet? Well, maybe so. Maybe it's up to you. Let's take a little bit of our sky and a little bit of our burnt sienna. Some of this makes lovely grays. I'm going to thin this with some extender just so it gives me a little bit of painting time, but it also, I love painting clouds with extender. And I'm going to basically let's set this cloud. And I'm just going to scrub this here. Scrub the shape. I don't really like that big puffy round one right there. So I may, whisper it off the edges a bit more back there. But I'm just, see, this gray is just a little bit grayer than my blues that I'm using into the sky. So it can, and let's just whisper that off. So it's just a little bit bluer than a little bit value-wise, it's just a little bit, it's same lightness, but it's a little bit grayer than the color that I'm using there. Now, before, when I paint clouds with you, I always say we go to the shadow. I'm going to go, and as I start the shadow, as I start the lights, I always go a little bit thicker. Let's keep a bit of that burnt sienna in there. Let's see how this works down through here. That's a beautiful gray. Sometimes, and I'll just smear that out. So, and you got to think about the light and the shadow of the whole thing. And so, yeah, that will work. This would be the shadow side up here. Do you want to put a little bit of the sky color in there to soften that just a bit? That sky blue softens that here. That's not too bad. Sometimes I will fuzz it out and this is a technique, you see me use it in roses all the time. It's called shear, where I just shear the paint off onto a dry surface by pushing it. Now let's get a little warmer. Maybe even a little bit of this orangey light warm here, just a bit of it. And now this also, I do love doing this. Don't lose that brush. I do love just pushing it around with my knife because I get a more beautiful cloud that way. Because it just, you get these broken edges, which I like, into the cloud here. Even that breaking edge of the light there. Here, let's just form a little bit more heavy right in there. But see, I love sliding that knife on there because it just works that cloud really nice. I like just a touch of that orange in there, just a touch of warmth. A bit there. Let's just, and I'm going to shear that off. I'll show you in a second. Don't worry about it because you can shear off for quite a long time. A lot of people always worry, oh, it's going to dry on me. No, don't worry about that, guys. If you're painting with the Heritage, you have a long time to manipulate this. Now, that other, on the photo, that cloud comes down real close to the surface of that mountain, and I don't think I'm going to do that. Maybe a little bit over here. But you have a long time here to shear this, okay? And what I mean by shear is using the water, or I can use my water in my finger, or I can take just a watered brush here and push this back like this. See, I like to leave a bit of the highs and lows that come from that knife there. And let's just push that up. See, this is shearing it into the blue. See how it picks up even a little bit of that blue that's still wet from, and I showed this on that hawk. So we can push that up here. And see, the Heritage stays wet for a few hours. So, I mean, not wet for a few hours, but where you can do this, shear into it really easy. And gives you that look. Now, I like that, but I feel it's a little bit too much of an angle, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my paper towel with some water and just pull through this whole bit here and start to soften some of that out here. Just like that. It just gives, I just want some of the movement. I don't want it real super stiff. So And then I'll just drag some of this across, dirty paper towel, here for some atmosphere in there. I like that. I even like that little bit of light coming through as I'm picking up the blue that's originally there, that I originally did here. And I can, if I take off too much, I can push it back. But I do like that little bit there and that soft little wispy. So it's not quite as stiff. Does that make sense? It's not quite as stiff as it was earlier. There's something about painting with a paper towel like that I really love. And so we'll just wispy this off into some looks of clouds here. That looks better. And that little light blue that is actually the white color coming back as I'm taking off some of the stuff. It looks less like reflections into the clouds, doesn't it? Looks like you know what you're doing. So sometimes, when I'm painting, sometimes I feel, and the best word to describe it is constipated. I get it too stiff. And there's nothing like grabbing a dirty paper towel and just running it through it to just, run up some of the interest and stuff into that area there. So that looks nice. I like that. So it's a little softer. Let's put a little high cirrus up here or something. And something up here. Maybe just a bit. Just picking that up. And that's enough. That might be too much right there. Just pull back a bit. Nothing like a paper towel. So now that gives us the mountain here and everything. I'll put in the very beginnings of this. We'll do this over a couple of videos here. I'll put in the very beginnings of what I have here to start the focal point back in. And then we will go over to another video and paint some of the front and stuff like that. So I'll do some of the initial block in here, and then we'll do it in another video for you. But those of you that want to study the mountains, that's a great way. Now you could add more to this one. The more you add, the more you bring it back. But see, it's just sitting back there really nice. You can put some clouds up over here to cover some of that edge, but I do kind of like the wispiness of some of that cloud. And so this area in here we say has a lot of edges in it, and then you notice everything softens out as it goes here to here. That's how you get your greatest depth. So as I come in here to block in and paint some of the other areas in here, I want to keep aware of that I want those areas, these areas here. I'm going to go to my 3/4 inch brush. I want these areas up in here to have more edges and then softer back out through here. Let's set up a little bit of this ridge line, this tree line here, and some of it right up over here that will help us focus into where we're going to go. One of the things that I want to do, and I think I'm going to do it right now. I'll do it with you right now because I want to do it right now. There's when you're painting like this, guys, you can jump around and go anywhere that you want as long as you have a good idea of where you're going to go with the painting in your mind. And that's what I do. I always say, never box yourself in by painting one area too much and not enough. So I know that I can paint him and drive the viewer here while still having that amount of interest there. Because I know I have not painted, I know these colors, even though they're dark here, they're not as dark as what I can use in this particular painting. So, but there's an area that I really want to drive the viewers into, and I'm just going to show you that. And I want to create the depth. And those of you that have painted the landscape studies with me that I did on the online class and stuff, there's a Louis Ashton Knight. I just love his stuff. As a matter of fact, he's a 19th century painter. As a matter of fact, I was able to collect one of his paintings. And his use of crossing planes and depth is just absolutely amazing. But and one of the things that he does is he's going to cross two planes, and I'm going to do it here to create some depth. And I want some burnt sienna and some green and stuff. And so I'm going to create right in here this other line of trees, which I kind of drew on to begin with. Okay, I'm going to create this line of trees. and we're going to create a crossing plane. And then, you know what he does in like and I've done it a few times with you guys. I've set up some depth and painted like a little horizon line in the back that's very, very light. That is a Lewis Ashton Knight does that. And I studied him for years in his techniques, and he painted over it. He was an American, but he painted over basically all throughout Normandy in France. And I went over there several times painting there and stood in the same places that he painted and stuff, and sitting there and going, how do you see all this stuff? So I'm doing some different colors, some tones of lights and darks right in here to create this plane, which is what I want to create. Now, as I get over here, okay, because I want the viewer to come into this valley. Does that make sense? So it's going to be light against dark, movements, and all that kind of good stuff, all that artist stuff. But back up over here, I want this darkness to come forward here. So we're really going to have, and let's just put something in here, some blue and some burnt siennas right up in here. This is going to be ultimately our dark right there. So you can see how that, and look at what it does to this mountain, is this is ultimately going to be these trees over here that are going to create this pathway here that I want to create here. This coming into this way. Does that make sense? But I want a little bit of that, not quite as dark, a little bit of that right up in here. So a lot of things that you do is also by the amount of what it is that you do. So I'll put a little bit of that in there that pulls your eye right back here, and we'll use a few little points to make this look like trees here, okay, like a nice foresty area. But see that, just that tiniest, and this is where the artist, you really have to pay attention. The tiniest bit. Now see, I'm going to shove this back, this mountain back here, back. While I watch this, I'm just going to shove that a little bit. Don't get carried away. Just a little bit of this color moving in through here. We don't want to get tons of it because it's going to bring it forward and compete against what we're doing in these other areas. And then we'll soften it out. Does that make sense? So I'll use this dark here coming forward and see how that pushed that mountain back, but it's not as dark as this. Does that make sense? And so I know I'm taking a little bit of my blue, my green, my colors here, and I know as I come up here to establish these trees right up here, and I push this darkness right in here, I'm going to bring these trees right up in front, and then that, and then those. Does that make sense? And to help push back just a little bit more, I'll take some of my atmosphere. And see how wet that stays there, guys? See how nice and wet that stays? Works really, really nice. And I'll take a bit of my atmosphere right in there, which will help push those trees back, those edges right back there, see? And it goes, and let me just push some of this atmosphere back in here so that if I have sky holes, what we call sky holes in the trees will pick it up. So that is going to go there. Now, some of you might have, especially beginners, have a hard time going, where are you going with that, Dave? I see it in my mind. And that's because I've done this on probably 400 paintings, so I know exactly where I'm going. That will come, guys. That will come, okay? It will come. Now, back in here, and I look back in there, I really want to get that light snow edge right in here. So I'm going to have some shadow snow right up here. That's going to come right up in here. And see, I'll start some of this shadow because I can use the white of my canvas here to help me see it. Okay, so to see where the lighter snow is. And I'll use a little bit of it right here along that edge there. Okay, and I really want to, bring some light trees and stuff in here, which means to help them come forward, I may need a little bit of dark up against this edge of that snowy hill there, right in there. And so, a lot of artists, and a good way to say there's a lot of artists, like I tell you about Richard Musgrave Evans. Even though I don't paint anything like him, I watch every single one of his videos. I love it. I mean, the guy is so great with just tons of paint and a palette knife. But he always starts out with the darks, get some of those darks in, because the darks really start setting the tone of it through here. And that's the way I was taught as well. Get some of those darks. So even though I'm going to have lighter trees come up here, below these tree line is going to be some of that real dark, and I want to see that. And it's the darks that place it, just like that dark really placed that mountain. Now up in here, see, it's not quite as much. And let me just take some of these darks, because we'll put some lights up here too. Let me add a little bit of moisture right in here, but into this. As we build these darks up here, look what happens. Let me get some of this burnt sienna. Love, because sometimes your darks can get too cold. So a little burnt sienna. And I'm just going to keep this dark right down here. I'm not doing the trees yet. But I'll just lightly. And look at what these darks, just model that up a bit there. Look at what those darks do, as those are going to come out this way, right? They're going to do so much for us, guys. We're going to be able to paint those, see? And then we'll get those shadows and stuff pulling across this way that you see up there, right? And that's all going to work. But I want to go up here and paint these trees kind of really nice here. For maybe, should we do them now? Just, yeah. How many say yes? So this is the difference with me filming instead of doing a live class. You guys are talking to me in the live class. So I'm just going to take a smaller brush here and some of the blue and burnt sienna, a little bit of the green, and just the edge of my brush here. And I'll put in a few of the main here. Don't try to have them at different sizes and not exactly tracking along the same line. And then a little bit smaller as they go down right back through here. Okay, so that's the trunk. And then we'll push out these kind of, take off some of that extra paint there. Kind of push out here and up at an angle, up at an angle, up at an angle. But try to do them for different amounts out. Leave some sky holes in them, okay? Up at an angle and out a bit. And sometimes just take your towel and just pull through them real quick like that, okay? And a little bit heavier. Sometimes I'll take it and cross a little heavier and then take them out. A little heavier by the trunk. And then take them out here like that. Here, and we'll just whisper. Sometimes smaller ones I just pull across. And the thing is to make all of them a little different. That's the biggest thing here. And get some of the, and of course we'll put in some lights, because the lights will also hit it here as well. But we'll hit some lights here. And a few little ones. Whispery ones. There we go. Just the ideas. And back up through here. Just a little bit of paint. Stumble on some little marks. To say the treetops here, right up there. That's all they need. And as you get right back up through here, not only, don't make a kind of a straight line there. So I want to take some up a little higher, but a little heavier on one side so that you can create some light and shadow into those areas as well. So throughout, like right through here, I'll create a few heavier lines so that it creates the look of shadow here and then light. Does that make sense? And we'll pull some of that shadow and light down. And that gives you the highs and lows of the trees. And different artists will do it different ways. And here we go. Just like that, okay? So you'll get some of that. But see how that's all pulling this way, and as it's pulling up this way here, then that is shoving back some of that other stuff here. So that's good. Let's just block in. I have a little bit of this sky color here. And we'll just lightly here. Let's gray that ever so, just a touch. We'll go a little bit different here. Not quite as bit here. And we'll take this back and forth. This is all going to come out, you know, here. And again, I'll just do this. I love the paper towel because it's the imparting of the first colors that is going to give me the look. And of course, I'm going to paint snow back and forth through there. But that gives you kind of the idea of light and shadow. Does that make sense? And of course, we'll have darker greens and all kinds of that art stuff all over that. Let's take some of this and push this right back in here. Some of that grayness. And of course, this is pretty much all trees, but boy, you know, this whole side here is all really trees, which helps bring it in. But I might. I'm seeing, ooh, what if I did trees and I did a real light, especially right here, light coming down. See, it's all dark right up in there, see? But if I did some tree line here and did a light hillside of some snow, maybe some grasses opening up because it's sun's hitting this area, and that would play against him. That might be even, I liked that whole thing of this forming this tunnel, but that might be good. It might be good to try that before we get too much of this other stuff on there. So we'll let this go into shadow a bit here. But see, if I leave some of this light like it hits here and some grass, that might be kind of neat in there. And but you can kind of see it forming this thing here, and I want to be able to do that. And I can do that with my trees, and I can, you know, I can add that in with my trees there. So that's a good thing. I mean, I could even drop this light and maybe put a backside of a hill. Let's take a look here. So let's gray this just a bit. So if we put a backside of a hill right here, you know, this, and then it goes up into those trees. So as you got, so it's like forming this little valley and some trees and some more stuff going on here. Does that take away from it? You know, rather than having it all focused down like that. I kind of like that idea. And this is a nice thing about working the shadow. See, I can kind of draw my design here a little bit, you know, by focusing some of the shadows, the snow colors and stuff coming out here, light and shadow here, and using the white, I can use that to help draw this down. So what I'm saying here, for those of you that might be a little bit confused, is I'll put a lightness right up in here, and maybe not a tremendous amount of edges, but that lightness that comes up here, and maybe a little bit of the snow shadows here, light snow shadows, and then the trees, and make like another little hillside here, and some of this extra, real soft, right back up over there. And we'll put some smaller trees and stuff like that in there, but that would really work. Now, back to what I was originally saying that Louis Ashton Knight really liked, and I just drew that brush in there, is that he would put this real light. So I'm going to come right in here, like this is a light struck area right in here. Boom, right up in that area there. And of course I'll cover some of this real thick paint right in there. But that's what he would do. So see, it's creating this focal area right in there. And I'll put some trees over it that pulls your eye further into the painting. And we have to determine, you know, do we want to do that? Because we're all, maybe put some does or some cows right out here. The elk, they're called cows. So we might want to do that. But if I just pull some of this up here, right up there like that, and see, that's a nice light struck, light against dark, that really pulls your eye right there, right into that area. So boom, and then the shadow pulls up on this side, because this is all in cast shadow here. And so we'll vary the light and dark of our shadow right up here. That might really look nice right up in there. See? Can you see it? You know, need to put on your mountain glasses so you can see it here. And yeah, so that will, and here I am now. I said, oh, not over an hour, and I've already gone over an hour. So let me just add a couple of these little things, and then we'll save it. We'll do it with the next painting, okay? The next video. So I'll add, so you got to think your trees. You don't want to go, you want to get some of the darkness right in here so it pulls in front of the mountain here. But we also want to set up some layers of the trees. And this is, you're looking at the shadow side of the trees. This side, you'll be looking at the light side of the trees. So let's start them out. A little green, little burnt sienna, tiny bit of blue, but a little bit lighter here. So we'll add a bit of our sky and stuff color in this as well. And let's work some horizontals, some verticals here. Edge of my brush, sometimes touch a little more color. This is my number, this is my 8. An 8 or a 10 here will work nice for this. There is a more of a hill here, so we can go a bit higher right up here. So it undulates a bit, okay? Undulates a bit. And maybe a darker shadow side to some of them. Keep the edges of them undulating here. There we go. And green, burnt sienna, some blue, and a little bit of the sky here to lighten that up a bit. Sometimes a little heavier dark into a shadow area here. There, like that. Little bit. So undulate the lights and shadows. Have some shadows in there. Here. Right up like that. That'll make the trees much prettier. If they all your brush marks a little, just go doom, 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 doom. Use different edges of your brush and add different colors and stuff there, and keep them all working. So this has a lot. So I have a little more burnt sienna right now in there. And see, that just creates a lot of beautiful things. Let's take some of that burnt sienna up over here. Some of that just touching in there is really pretty. Just like adding some of the lighter greens and stuff up in here later on. Or you can take some yellows, some whites, some of these burnt siennas to create some lighter tones right up in here as well. Because some of these are going to be sunlight hit, right? Just a bit of the sunlight hitting those. Not over here, because you're in shadow. But some of that sunlight might hit a few of these guys. Just a few. Just to say you did it, see? Yeah. And then, you know, back up over here, we can put the heavier trees, which will push that back, or we can soften it all out. I think I might do the heavier trees. And the reason for that is what Bill Alexander always told us, Bob Ross, Bill Alexander, all of them, that you create that dark, almost a window here. So we'll go a little darker. Maybe these are coming down this hill here. And see what it's going to do is create, so if I come up over here, let's go a little darker yet and heavier, but if I come up over here and start to push some of that right down here, it forms this, it closes it off and forms this nice little channel right here. So it's closing off here and it's closing off there and bringing the viewer further back. So that works. So we'll come back in here, maybe a little bit more dark. Right back in there. So see, you can even pull some across and didn't issue. I like to use my finger to blur out the edges here. But yeah, and some of these up here, you might want to just tap a little bit to create some of the, you know, as they come forward, you'll start seeing more details. Maybe some edges, some extra branches or something coming off here. Just very impressionistic. I love the paint impressionism, which I don't, or I don't try to emulate it perfectly. I just do the impression of them. Now, back up over here. So we get this heavy. Let's get that a little heavier right there. That darkness right there, see, closes off our viewer's eye off that side, see? And then, but we are going to have, let's go a little burnt sienna, maybe a touch of green in here. We're going to have some of the lightness here because this is the light side of the trees. So some of this is going to hit light right up in here. So some yellows with a little yellow green here, right up there like that. Maybe a little bit here. Maybe some of this hits up here, there. Maybe a little bit more green. Tiny bit of white with it, maybe. A little bit of green. Here. And just drag your brush. Just drag, and this is why I love these fusions. Just do it like you know what you're doing here. Ah! That wasn't right. Yeah. Oh boy, that's just, yeah, that's not good right there. It does look like snow on the trees, though. Let's put a... I hit the white, the textured white that I had there earlier. One reason why I like acrylics is because they dry, because sometimes I'll do that. But what's bad about it is when they're not dry, when you added that open medium like I did right there, or thicker paint, it doesn't dry right away. Let's just restate that right in there. I do like that. Just blur those edges right there. That looks pretty neat. So you can pull into that, just blur those edges back. But see, that's what I like about Louis Aston Knight would come in back in here like this, and he would just drive that right around this other corner to create another look of another triangle so that you have like another line going back. Does that make sense? So here you have this journey, and he called it the visual journey back through there. And he'd take just a small little brush, even though I'm using a big one, and just create that little journey back there. And it takes you right back into the very back of that painting there, which is kind of neat. So we have some of those there. We have some light. Let's use some of this light here, and we'll push a bit more of that light snow. Tap some of that around some of these edges here. Some of that working in and out of these edges. And some of that texture there. There, nice light. Maybe a little bit more orangey color. Warming that up just a bit more here. Yeah, just a bit of warmth, and probably maybe a touch hard to see that, but a bit of warmth hitting that. We get that nice warm and shadow there. Maybe, and you know, look for, like, here's my shadow color. So maybe kick back a little bit of a shadow here up along that tree line right there so that you kick some of those blues back through there. And again, it pulls it back down. So maybe right up in here, kick back that shadow right there a little bit. And the thing is in all of this, you know, you're just looking for ways, and in everything I do, whether it's painting flowers or painting a landscape like this, I'm always looking to carry that color. Does that make sense? Carry that color. So we've changed my original concept here. Let's put a little strike of light, like this is a nice little hill rising back up again right there. You know, boom. That looks pretty neat. Right up there like that. Just a bit of, and all of that, see, I want to leave this kind of underpainted right in here and everything so it goes up against that elk, you know. So, yeah, that works. And we'll have some heavier. You can have a bit more of the light in there, but we do want to keep it cooler here, so we want to keep some of this. We can go a little bit, you know, lighter blue and stuff, but we want to keep everything here cooler as it's pushing in and out of those trees. See, I just pushed that color in and out of these trees here. And just create that undulated line, so it's not perfect. And that's what gives you the interest. Try not to have a harsh line. Let that undulated line sit in there. And try to have, which is very important, try to have a good, let's thin this just a bit, a good strong horizontal like this. And what that does, that horizontal does, is it sets the nice plane of it. Just like a strong vertical on a tree and stuff, this strong horizontal sets that plane. You can, you know, have some angular ones coming down. Like on the original that's up there, there's a little bit of this hill angles back this way. And we can, and just let me show you, we can do that just by taking a little bit of our lighter color here. And see, instead of pulling it that way, I pull it this way. And that gives the feel that this hill is angling back that way. Does that make sense? And that's not too bad. So, but the direction at which you pull something is what gives you that look. Let's put a little bit of light coming right back. Maybe this is coming back into the light right there. So we'll bring some of that light right into there. Some of this nice warm light is going to hit against the edge of these trees we have yet to put in there. Maybe we don't put as much trees. Maybe we're just going to, I like those trees back there. Maybe we just put this rocky edge like I see on the other ones there. We might end up just doing that, not have the trees. Let's just look at a rocky edge, tree, grass edge here, right up in there. That's just so much fun to paint those edges like that. Gives so much interest to it. Let's put a bit of that right back up in here. There, like that. See, and I love it. I just push this brush and it just, because it's so soft, it just fades out all different kinds of ways. And see, I just touch, and you can do that with your knife as well. You see, it's just giving you little marks and stuff there, you know, like we used up here, right? Just giving you little marks. Having and leaving that mark there, though, is pulling the viewer in like this and up that way, which is kind of what I want. So, yeah. Okay, so that's good. That's a good place to stop right in here. You can, and I'm going to, of course, continue on. I'll go take a lunch break. Look at that. It's right before lunch. It's 4 minutes to lunch. So I can go take a lunch break, and then I'll come back and I'll finish this off, and I'll put it in part 2, okay? Because I'm almost out of tape anyway on this. So I'll put this in part 2, and where we'll paint this whole foreground and the Sentinel elk right here, the big elk. I call it the Sentinel. And if you don't want the elk there, like I said, you can put a river or something here, because the mountain can be the Sentinel as well. So yeah, it's either way there. But there you go. There's part 1, and we'll go over and we'll paint into part 2. This is really good for you guys, even my flower painters and stuff, to do something like this, to start concentrating on those edges. Because guys, this is what I do in a floral composition. The same thing about edges and softness and stuff like that, okay? It's all part of the art of seeing. And, you know, I did this entire course, the art of seeing, and teaching you how to see something and see depth and dimension, edges, colors, tones, warm, cool, fun stuff, okay? All right, so I'll see you guys on part number 2. Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, I decided I'm just going to put this all in one big long video, I think, rather than do 2, because I think everyone enjoy. Plus, I have another floral one coming right away, so I don't want to load down too many videos on the channel. So let's keep going right into this one, okay? So I think so when I left here, before I went and had a little lunch, we were working right in here, putting in some of this. I like this. I sat there and looked at this, and I like everything that's going on here. I'm going to do some gentle washing in of some colors of the warms and the cools here, and I don't need to do too much of the snow, not yet. Maybe drop its value just a little bit, but then I'm going to work on him. So let's get into this. All right, so I'm going to go back to my 3/4 inch brush here, and I'm going to look into a nice gentle tone, which I pretty much know that one in there. A little green, a little burnt sienna, and some yellow oxide. I'm going to add a bit of extender to this, not to keep it real wet, just so that I can wash in and slide over it. Now, I want to gray this slightly because it is a little bit too warm for what you see over in that photo. So I'm going to add a little blue and a little white to this. See how that softens that out? Of course, and it takes it closer to what we see in those colors. So let's just gently wash this in. Real thin. There's a little extender, a little water. The two are very compatible with each other. We'll just wash this, and you know, let some streaks in here. I have a little running of the color because it is very thin. We'll wash over some of this area here, and right back up in here. I'm going to let this snow go. This is going to look great, I think. Now let's darken that down a bit, a little more green, maybe some yellow, burnt sienna here, right like that. Then we'll lighten it back up with that blue again, which is so very important. Gives you a little different color here. We'll streak some of that in as well, and we'll do some smaller little marks, and I'll just take my paper towel through here and just break it up. That's all I want to do, and it's just break it up so that it's not just too much horizontal. Does that make sense? So see, I just break that up. I want that just kind of modeled. Let's add a little bit different color, maybe a little more yellow, a little bit of white, and a bit of that through there. Yeah, that looks good. And again, see, it's just giving a nice coloring going through. Maybe a bit up here as well. There we go. And so lots underneath him. The snow, okay, so I'm going to rinse some of that out, just a bit of that. Let's go back up over to our blue snow. Maybe just a bit of that other color there. And let's just drag some of that across. And let the two override each other a bit. I'm not going to do as a stark color contrast between the snow and the ground that you see in the photo. I'm going to have it a little more gentle, a little more soft. We'll be doing some of it though with our palette knife, our painting knife as well. Here, but I want to have just a nice gentle snow. Nowhere near the white yet, nowhere near the white. And this is actually creates, here's a little more water, creates some of our real casual shadows for the snow that's going to come in here as well, okay? Now, let's build up a little bit of this light warm snow. The yellow, a little orange. Yellow, a little red here, a little bit of red. Makes that orange right into a pile of this white. And what's really good, and you've seen me paint snow, of course, on several lessons, but my favorite is to use the knife because it really plows it on and you get more of this kind of, you know, the working here of the texture and shadows, the highs and lows and stuff. So boy, that really does look nice right along that edge. Yeah, let's pick up some more whites stuff right in there. We'll just scrape that along here. And of course I'm going to add shadows, but I'm just adding interest right now. And you can just scrape some of that along right in there, because we'll change it. You know, I'm gonna add some. I want some of this. I don't want it in as straight a line as what you see in the photo, in the reference photo. I want this to be a little more chunky and a little bit more going on. But I have to be careful that we don't do it too much. But and I'm gonna come right back into this and add some of the shadow marks. This is just adding some of the snow between the grasses. That's all I'm looking for. But I'm not putting in the shadowing marks yet. But see, you can see where that shadow is coming out and coming through here. That looks pretty good on that. Let's get just a bit more like that little ridge line there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Some of that can come right up here, pulling down maybe a bit. That puts that extra little angle right here. We'll go right through his horns here, through his antlers. Here. There we go, like that. A little bit of a ridge line right there. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, and you can go work on him first, you know, and drop him in. But I'm going to soften some of this and a little water in my brush. Soften some of the edges here. Just push that back just a bit. And then what I'm going to do is, you have two types of shadows. This is the snow shadow here, which I want to restate. And then we have the cast shadows that you see here from these guys up here. That's coming in even on the green side there. So so you have the cast shadow coming over the snow and then onto the land here, which we want to emulate that as well. So we made that light blue for a cast shadow, maybe just a little of the snow, not quite that much red, but just a little bit of red to tone that down. Just a bit of burnt sienna or red. Both of them work. They're very nice. And let's push a little bit this. And you could, you know, if you're painting a bigger painting, sometimes I always take people paint a little bit bigger. You might want to, and I think I'm going to do, is shove just a tiny bit of violet into that. That violet is a real pretty and a nice cool color. Let's add just a touch of extender there. But it looks real pretty coming over some of those colors right in there as well. So you get the blues and the violets right in there. And so you see that nice deeper shadow like you see there, and some of it getting lighter and darker. And using your painting knife works really well on here. Just let some of these colors come off your brush different like this. That's what's going to make it pretty. And then I love to use my paper towel over it to get some of the softening of those colors back through there. That just, there's something about the paper towel that just gives it a really nice, like almost a natural look to it. And I really like it. So, yeah, and that'll help you with your highs and lows. In other words, areas here, the highs and the low color. Getting some of that streakiness in there. So by doing it several times, you see I get these highs and lows here. And instead of just doing it one time and blending it in, I can do it multiple times and get some of these highs and lows, which adds even more interest. Let's put a little bit of that shadow out a little further right there. Right in there. That looks pretty good. So you're going to get the streakiness of these shadows, which is going to be great. And again, it's always really nice sometimes to do that knife, because see, that knife gives you a bit of that fractured edge that just looks great. And you can flatten it down and blend it into some and create the highs and lows in the snow as well. Maybe, and if you want to do some of that, thin it out. Add a little bit of extender with it and thin it out. And you can see I can push the color like this and just slide it like that, and I'll get more highs and lows and little marks of it and stuff like that coming through. And that works really, really well. So thin it out and it slides really well onto the, and that will work into some of our wet blues and create the little highs and lows of the snow here, which is, and then you can focus down and really start to make, like, this light is going to go pretty much all the way back through here, right through like that light, and there we go. That looks pretty good. So you'll pick up, like you see here, you'll pick up little bits of the light coming through. So the light tracks as you have these, the shadows and lights are crossing each other quite a bit there. So that looks pretty good. A little thin right here. You can fracture off like this. That gives you more of, so there's some of the light coming through, and then fracturing like this. So if you start to thicken the paint slightly, you'll get this fracturing like this, which gives you more of the highs and lows as well. You don't see this quite as much on the photo as what I have here, but this is how I love to paint snow. Makes it very realistic. So I like to do it this way. And I like those fractured edges and stuff here. Here we go. A little bit of manipulation there. So you see back and forth just adds so much. There, like that. A little bit back here. And then we'll add some of the shadowing and stuff here. That, see, sometimes a little bit of a smear, and then those little fractured edges. Those little fractured edges mean like little bits of light, and just like on the mountain, see? Little bits of light here that hit somewhere along there on the snow. Now, let's go and let's develop that a little bit more. I'm going to go back to my number 8, an 8 or a 10 here. And let's develop some of those real nice dark. So we'll go burnt sienna, a little bit of green, and some blue, but mostly burnt sienna and blue. Darker, real kind of a darker green here. I'm going to add some extender to this so it's just a little bit thin. and we'll come up right up underneath this, and we'll develop the cast shadow that is coming in line with some of our other shadows here. So this is the cast shadow from the green area. So here, so we'll drop some of this down here. So coming into the grasses and stuff, this is the shadow in the grasses before it hits the light. Right in there. Here, like that. Here, and right back here, boy, there's quite a bit of it, actually. We could increase this a little bit more so the viewer sees this whole area as shadow. A little bit of light and shadow. I never mix up piles of it because I always like it to change a little bit here. So we'll just grab some of this, and you can see you can use this to help you give the feeling of the snow as well by just fracturing the edges here, and you can do that with the brush. So there's a lot of times that I like to go back and forth between a brush and the knife to create some of these edges. Boy, they're banging around something outside. Let's pop some of this in here. There we go. A little bit of that shadow. And then I'll adjust some of this shadow to track right along that one at the same time. And then so that they both kind of disappear at the same time. In other words, these are both shadow colors. Does that make sense? But I don't have to do all of them. Like, I can still leave some highs and lows there of those snow, but I want some of this shadowing to track right along with that shadowing of the grasses. So they're all going to stop about the same here. Some of this can track out a little further, right out like that. Maybe just a bit of the blue out there. So you put it in light and shadow here, and then I want to come back now with a real light yellow, right? Light yellow, burnt sienna, and green, lighter color that comes in here, and this is going to stop. Basically, we'll use this light, sometimes yellow, sometimes a little more green here. And this will stop right on the edges of those shadows. Does that make sense? So you've got light and shadow, and that's what we want to have. And so we'll develop this a bit more here. Some of this light yellow. A few little grassy type strokes there. We go light and shadow. And of course the reference photo has it a little bit more green. We'll do that. It's a back and forth building, right? It's what we do. We back and forth build. And there's a lot more smaller little light and shadow marks on the reference photo. I'm not sure I'm going to do all of those just because they become a little bit distracting in the painting. So not quite sure how many I'm going to do. Let's put a little bit of light snow right along that edge there. Right along there. So you see that snow and the light. maybe a bit more snow. So as I'm doing this, see, I'm refining my edges of the light and snow. So into shadow into here. So they need to cross a little bit, but you also need to, you know, have a light area and then a shadow area. So, but they do need to cross a little bit. Let's get just a little bit lighter and a little bit of violet into that. Ooh, that violet's really pretty, but that's a little heavy. There we go. Just like that. So you get the definite feeling of light and shadow. And we'll work that back and forth a couple times. So some of these that are coming off here reach all the way across, basically right in through here. And so I'll just indicate that, but you can see, so the blues and stuff, blue colors and stuff are into shadow. The lighter are into light. And now it's just a matter of repeating it back and forth until you cross them enough. And let's put a bit of light right in here. There. And so, see, I'll cross that light right there, and then I'll put a bit of that light picking up right in here and dropping off right there onto the shadow right there. So you see the light and shadow ending at the same spot, if that makes sense. And you don't need to do that absolutely everywhere, but in a few places, like right in here would be nice for that, right where that's picking up, let it start to die off there. A few little areas there. And so you get the feeling of light and shadow. And of course, what they have over here is long shadows for some of the trees crossing right in here. And we can emulate those as well, as long as we don't make it too distracting for the final painting of the elk. So we might want to wait on some of that to the elk, but you know, so you put like a longer here, right in there. Yeah, that works. Maybe a bit more dark right in here. But you can see I work it several times, and that's what's giving it its interest, if that makes sense. The light and shadow crossing of the interest of it. And right out here, let's just grab a bit more light right up in some of this yellow. A lot of light, and let's just get brave with it right up here, which really makes it come forward and snow. Now, a lot of texture right here. This is where I want the viewer to go. And see, once I build that undercoat, see, I can come over and skip my knife here with some texture. I can soften it, but I just love the way that texture plays on the surface here. It just, especially using my knife like this here, and you get this crossing and stuff here, that just works really well right into the light and shadow here. And you know, sometimes like right through here we have, let me show you, right through here, like we could take this and just push this light even more right across like that, and just leave these little fractured marks on there, because that's the highs and lows of hitting the you know, where the light is hitting on highs and lows of the snow. And you can thin it out a little bit to cause it to slide over the surface even more. Here, like that. There we go, like that. That looks pretty good. But see, it's a building process, right? It's a building and a softening of it, and build and build and build. I just love that knife, how that works. Let's go back one more time to the brush and some of that yellow oxide and white. We'll build that nice light here. There we go, light into shadow. Maybe just a touch of the green into that. Spring is coming, a little bit of the green. A little bit of the green here. A little too much of the green. Green here. Put it on and you can take it off, soften it out. Find your coloring that you want to use. Here. Boy, that yellow oxide is always, every time I paint nature, of course it's a natural iron oxide, so it's such a great color. It's nature. It just always works. It's nature. Okay. That works. So you can definitely kind of see the path of light and shadow through there, which is really kind of neat. Let's put up a little bit of light hitting a few of those areas, and then that'll be a light here, and maybe some light snow coming down right there. Warmer right in there. That looks nice. Little piles, you know, I mean, little piles of texture. That just looks neat. Sometimes you take that brush, real thick paint, and just drag it like this, and that puts a bit of the snow, just little bits of it, into some of those areas that, you know, little broken areas like you see in the snow. It's so because you want these overriding kind of fractured areas here, so it's not perfect, and you know, then it looks more natural. See, yeah, that works pretty nice. And restate, thin out some of this blue. Let's just restate that shadowy tone right in there. Restate this one. Nice shadowy tone right in there. Light and shadow. Yeah. Few little, you know, I like there's just a couple like little hits of light in the photo that I do like, these little sparks. You know, you hear me talk about in landscapes and stuff all the time, the little sparks of color that add so much, you know, into a painting. And so I like that. Little sparks. There we go. Just little edges. You can, you know, all the westerns that I do, you see me paint the prairie several times, and the prairie grasses. And into the prairie grasses, you know, a lot of times you see me use this brush, which is pretty amazing. But you can take this with a little bit of light and just hit a few little grasses to say, oops, here comes spring. A little bit of the the vertical movements to create just a few little sparks of grasses, which especially up around his hooves and stuff, and you know, just little sparks of it. That's pretty good. And yeah, so back and forth, that's up to you how much. I'm going to put just a touch more light right up here, because I have a bit of that light, and then a few little marks of it here, and just a bit of this light right in there. That's good. So you can see the undulating shadow. That's what I'm looking for. And these could be a bit darker. You know, looking at that, that could be, you know, we could go one more little bit like darker back in here, just like we do with the, you know, the blues there, where it's darker back through there and it gets a little bit lighter. So this could be just a touch more darker up on some of this, where that shadow disappears or comes out here before it gets further out, where it will get, the shadow gets a little bit lighter. And you know, I used to, when I first started painting, used to always think, oh, shadows are one color, dark. And no, shadows actually have varying colors in it. And not only warm and cools, you can have warmer colors in the shadow itself. And some people will go, what do you mean? Yeah, you can. Well, they'll appear warmer, okay, but they're not always that warm. But anyway, I talk a lot about that in color theory, and I show it. I did a lot of photography studies of shadows and stuff for many years to understand them, light and shadows. But anyway, here it's just slowly varying some of the tones and adding some more little marks, which the more time you spend adding little marks, the more realistic it starts to become. So that's up to you. So I'm going to take a little bit of my blue and violet here and just come over these edges a bit more. Break them up just a touch more. There. Softens. It even soften it out a little more than what I see in the reference photo, so that, because if I get too much, it'll start to compete against the elk, if that makes sense. So like we say, you're an artist, you have to sometimes vary it. But I like those, sometimes these quick stops and starts, or, you know, or like you see in some of those, some of this shadow goes out more into a point, will come out into a point, and you leave that point. Well, that's the cast part of the shadow. So yeah, so, but little sparks of light is light coming through little sky holes that you would have coming back down. So yeah, maybe a little bit of the shadows up in here, just a few. Break that up, a few little light and shadow there. Right like that. I think that's enough. I think that looks pretty darn good for where we want to go to painting. Let's go to the elk. And I'm gonna use some smaller brushes in painting the elk here. I have some of my 2 flats. I have a 2 flat here that has a lot of white paint that I dipped in earlier. So we'll clean that off. But maybe my 4, I have my little number 4. Let's start right there. And let's go over and make a burnt, look for his shadows first. That's always you know, when you don't know, if you're creating your own and you're doing alla prima like this, and we want to paint it fast, always go to the shadows. The shadows first is always a good thing to do, because it helps you see. And I will many times draw with my shadows. So here I will put on a little bit and see it's going to start advancing him. This is burnt sienna, a little bit of blue here. And let's just lighten just a bit of that to a gray, a little bit of blue with that, softer little gray, and pull down the plane of his face here. We're going to just simply paint him because he doesn't have a lot of room for detail here. But we do want to get some of like this burnt sienna and burnt sienna and yellow up into like his ears, little marks here up onto his face. So we're going to simply paint him here. A little darker. And I'm going to rest my hand here. I use just a corner of my brush, a little dark up here for his nose there. And we're going to, and basically his chin drops a little lower than the rest of him. There we go. And you can blur some of those edges just by pulling back in. So you don't want to, we don't want to make stuff that is like too perfect on him. Let's drop a little bit of a edge for his mane here. Let that be ruffly, like that. Okay. You might want to go to like my little number 2. This 4 is just a touch big. But you know, my rule, and I've been telling you guys, my rule is always, you know, to follow along what Sandin always says or what Sargent says. Always paint with as large a brush as possible in every area. So, and it's so true. Let's lighten that up a bit right here. Pull and follow his contours. Now, sun's coming in here, so now we're really going to hit him light. So we're going to go basically the yellows and maybe a little red and a little burnt sienna, lighter oranges right in through here. And we'll drop some of that in. And again, to make him really nice is we're going to paint these areas several times. I'm going to let it kind of dry up a bit, and then I'll do it again. Let's pull some of this orange down, right down in there. And we really want to get that nice burnt sienna, but little touches, little sparks of this around his face, dragging down a bit. That's going to give him a lot of interest. And here we go. And while we let that dry up a minute, let's just go lighten up some of a good tan color. Is his body's more of a tan, which is burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, and then some white here. Beautiful tan colors. This is a little dark, but this isn't going to be his final color. And I just want to follow the contours here more than anything else. So, and also I got a little ahead of myself there. Let's go back to a little burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, and let's find some of these bottom shadows here. And just, see, this is where I like to use a small brush and just kind of paint the contours, the marks. We'll put another smaller indication of his leg there. And simple. Keep it very simple here. Keep the painting of him simple. You don't have room really for a whole lot of details and stuff. So keep it all very simple. Here, we'll put in this tone. And then, we'll make a bit darker, bit more burnt sienna and blue. No light into it. Sometimes I'll add a little red, which grays it a bit more. You can even add a little violet, which is pretty. Makes it just a touch more purple. And this is good marks of a dark. Some of the darkest colors now in our painting are going to come right in here on him. The back of his front leg here, the side closest to us. A mark or two right up here into his belly right down there. And a bit of that. Some of this right up here. Falling right into his mane there. Okay. Maybe a touch of it down here at the bottom of his mane. There, like that. Yeah, let's get some more of that yellow oxide. Just going to streak some of these colors into here. Burnt sienna here, right in there. Yellow oxide, or some of the white, the light colors right here. Again, very simplistic. Keep him very simplistic. Here we go. Like that. And we'll go back. So these make really nice tan colors. Just add some of that to the tan color here. This brush is a little small for some of this bigger area, but we'll get through it. Just model through there. Don't try to paint anything smooth or anything. Model through there. We'll take some of the dark here. We'll lighten it till we get a nice little gray. This makes a nice receding tone. See, it's not as warm as the other tone. So like you see me paint so many things, rocks and stuff. You have three planes: the light struck plane, the receding plane, and the shadow plane. That's basically, we're going to have a light struck plane, a receding plane, and a shadow plane. And the receding plane always receives the gray. So here will be the receding plane that goes right down towards his belly there. So you can see the warmer and then the gray. Does that make sense? And then we'll take this warmer light right up here, and we'll do the light struck plane of his hip right here. And again, we're going to simply paint him, right? So there's the light struck plane. So you start looking for planes. And so we have some of that yellow, maybe a touch of the red, and then the white. These nice light struck planes. It's going to come down his front of his leg here, his body here. And again, I want to keep it kind of simplistic here, but nice light. And boom, we might even go even almost to white, maybe up around a 8 or a 9 here, right up there, right there. And then push it around a bit like that, and build it a couple times. Don't, because if you keep painting on it while it's wet, this is why I like acrylics. If you keep painting on it while it's wet, it's going to blend, and I don't want it to blend. I want it to smear or do what I call shear. I like to shear it off. Let's put a touch of that receding light right in there. That's pretty nice. A little touch of this light goes right up over his eye. That sets the foundation there of his eye, which is good. A little bit of the orange right back there. Maybe a little burnt sienna. See, small little marks. This is where the interest on him is going to come from. These small little marks there. Bit of a shadow mark right in here. Right there. Bit of our gray coming back up here. There. Let's get a touch more light here. A bit more light right up here. Pulling down there. Some of it right in here. So I'm just looking, to my reference photo there, just for positions of light and dark, and just trying to emulate some of those positions. Here we go. Some of the light right along his back here. Right like that. Get some warm color into that, because that's the light struck area, right? So we'll get some warmth into that there, and some of that real warmth up into this light area right up here. And right up in this area here, quite a bit more light. Whoops, got a little bit of blue. That's not too bad because it gives you, again, a various tone, but we want to build that light shoulder right here. There. That's pretty nice. So a little bit more. I love all, now look at all the tones happening in him, and this light, oh golly, there's just a lot of blue right there. We'll pull some of this over here. Just a lot of light on him, and some hits here. And you got to remember, as you're doing this, it may look light, but remember the acrylics dry darker, right? So it's going to dry darker. So you think you have it light enough, and then it dries a little bit darker. And so you may have to repeat it a couple times as you're painting him here. But we're keeping, he's small, so we're keeping him simplistic. And I was thinking about maybe adding some elk into the back, but maybe not. I kind of like him like this, standing out here also by himself. He has a tiny little bit underneath his eye. I'm going to use just a little corner of my brush there. A little bit of the blue, kind of the grayish receding tone here. I can have a bit more of that onto his face right there. Right in there like that, which is nice. That works out nice. Could have a touch more of the brighter orangey color there on him. But then we're just going to go with a dark mark, just some of my blue and maybe even a little red violet and some burnt sienna. Nice little dark, just not a dot, just a little dash kind of color there. That's all it needs right there for his face. A little bit of the dark, but that's really blue. Shows how blue I had that eye. Let's take some burnt sienna and go through that, just to kind of suggest the idea of his tail there. A little bit of gray light right there. Again, very simplistic. Keep it very simplistic, real quick, very simplistic. Over into the shadow receding areas, blue and the burnt sienna right there on him. Let's widen his hip here just a touch more. And basically it's just kind of looking at your reference and blocking in. So here you can see it's more gray than that nice warm, and I want to really state that nice warm light. And I want to also get rid of this little bit of blue right there. That little blue mark. There we go. Interfering with him just a touch. A little more light. And to quit fighting that last little bit of blue over there, I'm just going to put out a little fresh white right there to help me finish this off. A little bit more light. Yeah, right up that shoulder blade there. There, that looks pretty good. See, you could, and he's really small, but you see, one of the things like I would do, which I just love, I love burnt sienna, and so I love that. Let me take it down here. Burnt sienna and Diarylide, some of my favorite colors. And I just whisper a bit of that. See that nice, beautiful, popped out warm color right there. Maybe a touch right around his ears and stuff. Right in there, just a bit. Let's just put a mark right down in here. See, it's just it just adds so much into him there, see? And So I have these cooler grays and some of the other like warmer, lighter areas. I will just hit a mark or two of that right in there. It just adds so much. And I want to bring his body out here a bit more, just a little bit more here. So I'll leave that shadow that's right there, but because it gets a little bit of a shadow right there, but we're going to bring that out just a bit more. It brings his body out some more. And you can bring his barrel out a bit just by a touch more light right in there. Like that. That's pretty good. Let's take our blue and burnt sienna, which is our dark, and just drag this down a little bit more to just blur off his feet and stuff there. And well, I always like to, so I don't have to paint all those hooves. I could, but I don't have to. Is I just drag a little bit of snow or something over the edges of them, leave a bit of a shadow, and that's all that needs. You could put a little light grass, like in the photo up there is light grass and stuff with that. Now let's just paint light and dark here. I'm going to use just the chisel of my number 4 here. And just paint some light and dark of his horns. A little bit of water. We want this to flow, but I don't want to do it so much that I leave an edge. I'd rather have a little bit of fracturing of the color, because it's too dry, rather than leave an edge. A little edge of just the chisel of the brush, the corner of the brush. So, here we go. A little wider down through here. Yeah. This one comes out and crosses back. There. Yeah, just like that. There's an extra little one right here. There. And you can paint the light, the dark of it. So we can do a light gray. So just add some white to this. Very simple. We're going to keep these horns very simple, underpainted. Just tap a little bit. Normally you see me in so many elk painting. The antlers are some of the prettiest, most fun things for me to paint. I love them. But I'm going to keep them really simplistic here. And the majority of this is going to come with the blue. Let's come right in here again. Blue, burnt sienna, and some red, which is my dark, dark values. And those will go on everything. This will go on everything here to the right side, which is more of the shadow side. So after I put all of that on, then I'll just come through, tap a little bit of the very dark here. We might lighten these up just one more little bit. You know me, I love painting these things. I love how this one's coming out, so I don't want to just stop it with some too simple of the antlers. Let's go a little bit lighter, warmer. That's the whole key to all of this when you're painting antlers and stuff, is to get some of those tones. Get those tones in there. Blur them out just a bit. So see, I'll put this in. Yeah, that goes right up through here. I'll tap a little bit of light, see, and then I'll just blur it slightly with I like to use a finger, but you could also use a brush. And yeah, just blur just a bit. And that softens all of them off. Now you can, put there's on the reference photo, they get quite light in a couple of areas. So we just might hit a little bit of a shine in a few areas here, just to say we did it. Yeah. And if you get something too thick, you know, like, oh, maybe this is right up here is a little, it's not really, but you can negative paint in with some of your snow and stuff there. And blur the edges. You know, one of the things is I love to blur the edges slightly of something. It causes it to recede. So if you think this is too much or whatever it is, just drag a little bit of the light color over it and start to blur it back, and you'll reduce their power, if that makes sense. Here, let's put a bit of dark right in there. That's pretty good. And then like a bit of lighter color right up his body color. Let's get some of this right up here. So it puts the antlers into his head right there. So you don't have a quick stop and start. You just kind of tap some of that color in there. Boy, I just love that burnt sienna. And that, such a pretty color. And just put a bit of that on him. And some of the darker, maybe just a bit of that shadowy part of that back down in here. See, you could paint that all day. I just love those colors right in there. Such a pretty little bit on him. Let's grab a nice gray and fix that leg. Hopefully I would have noticed that before I varnished it, that his leg was a little wonky. Put a bit of light right there. There. So there you go. That's just a real simple. Now, the part that most people, including myself, forget sometimes is we'll just go ahead and do it this brush. Thin this out, thin the burnt sienna blue out here, right? Biggest important thing is your cast shadows are heading this way. So you need to get a cast shadow on him coming out this way. Right like that. And that he is so important because he's hopefully the center of interest here, and the viewer will, you'll pick up the whole shape of everything that's happening here because of him. So that's all you really need, because his head and stuff would be buried back here by his body. But you need that cast shadow a little darker as it gets a little closer to his body here. But just like that, a little bit picks up, and that gives you a nice cast shadow. Now, you can also just come back here with a little blue snow and touch a little bit of that blue snow in there, and that also helps with that shadow there. If you want to make more of a definite line, of course we can play with this all day. We don't want to, but there you go, a little more line here, just like that. Kind of neat. Oh, I like that little bit of light poking through him right there before that shadow picks up. That's kind of neat. Picks up, but yeah, there you go. Now, no little marks on his eyes or anything like that. I like those antlers kind of, really kind of soft right into there. So I think I'll leave that. But if you wanted to do some more work, you've seen, me do quite a bit of work on antlers and stuff like that before. It's up to you. I think I'm gonna leave him like that. I like that whole bit of the painting in here. I might do some more softening and stuff in here. I'm gonna set it back and take a look at it, for a little bit. Now, there's some of the finishing up that I do want to do is, over here onto the reference photo, there's a dead tree that's right here. I don't think I'll do that, but I might put in just a little bit of the grayer, kind of real light kind of gray colors right in here. You could add some snow and stuff, but this will bring up some of that. you know, and in atmosphere, let's talk about atmosphere for just a second. So I showed you in the last one, I'll show you here. We'll take a bit of our blue, which is our sky color. Now we lighten it up quite a bit here. And then we're going to add some extender here and rinse out some of the extra. We use just a little bit of this into our brush. And so if I wanted to create some additional atmosphere in some places, like let's just say thin this out way out, guys, way out. It's really almost water, okay? And so if I wanted to push back some of this mountain right back through here, see, I can do that just like that. See how it shoves that mountain further back? The atmosphere of it. So, and maybe a little bit back here, right back up above my trees. I can shove some of this whole mountain back, right back up over there, further back, bring those trees in. I could use this right in here real light here, just wipe it back a bit, and you see I can create a different level of those trees. So that you can do all kinds of fun things. You can put a little misty bit right down in there, a little mist to recede some areas and stuff. That's really nice. I'm going to take some of this right up in here, and it's dry, so I'm going to do what I call shear. I'm going to shear this off, which is just run my fingers over it. I already have it there, so I just wanted a little more to that cloud. So, if you put on a mark like that, you can come back with a little bit of water on the edge and soften it, or push it up, or do whatever. I like to just whisper like that. That's what gets a lot of the and it's very thin. This is where I really like the acrylics, is to shear like that, and it just makes nice, wonderful wispy clouds here. And you've got some of those other colors and stuff in there, but that just makes nice, wonderful, wispy clouds. You could build that up a bit more if you wanted to build that light side of it so that you had more of a traditional light side to the cloud. Here, light side, a bit more. But just fun things there, and get that. But that gives you a good idea. He's kind of a fun painting, Yeah, and what I'll do is I will put this away for just a little bit and look at it. I might want to create, and I think I will, just take some dirty color and create a few little, a little bit more interest. Yellows, lights here, small brush, little marks, just a few of them along the way, right up through there. I don't want to do too much that's going to compete with him, but a little bit, like right here, get rid of some of that light. Let's go more to a soft yellow, and see that he doesn't have to compete against anything, if that makes sense. Okay. And so he's not competing against anything there, and so he comes forward, especially if you put that dark that's on there, he comes forward. So that looks pretty good. You can, little areas that, like if you got a real dark right there, take artist license and put some of that snow right up there, right up next to him, and see that advances him again. See the amount, and it's just a little bit, but see, look what it does, and that's contrast, right? And those of you that study color theory with me and stuff, we have 8 rules of contrast, 8 things that we can do to really drive contrast and interest to what in a painting. And so towards the end of the painting, I start running through, looking at what I have and where I can drive more contrast and more interest. And usually that, You know, so you have value, contrast, temperature, warm, disproportionate color. You have simultaneous type contrast. There's just a lot of rules that we have. There's 8 of them that the artist can use to drive that interest and drive that depth within the painting there. But yeah, and so, you know, do I want to, well, make this, I hit that edge there, so with that shadow, so I'll bring that leg out just a bit more, maybe a bit warmer, just a bit warmer, bit right up there. That's pretty good. I think that I got that squeak came back in my chair here, so I got that squeak back in my chair, so. Big light hip here. You know, have you ever been to, you know, I realize that I'm pretty much done with this painting. I don't want to do too much more to it because I'll actually ruin it. So I'm really pretty much done with that. But have you ever painted because you just don't want to stop because it was a fun painting and you just don't want to stop? Well, that's kind of happening with me right now. I just don't want to stop. I want to keep going just a bit more. Enjoy it just a little longer, a little more light. There. There we go. Yeah, I think that's got a good handle on it. There we go. Just like that. That looks pretty good on him. So there you have it. That's right there. But I'll look at it. I'll put it away and look at it for a bit and see if there's anything more that I want to do on him. And that might, you know, well, you know, lately I have been so indecisive about finishing it. It's like, oh, you know what? I could do just a little bit more onto this shadow here, lifting this up, which will create a little more interest and roundness right in there because it matches that. See, goes through that area right there. And you know, if you're looking at the pure anatomy of him, this would carry on right up through there. And I think that's about all I want to do on that. But then that just carries right there a little bit more of the there. That's good. That's good for him. Enough. But you know, you could put a couple of smaller little cows out here, elk cows, if you wanted to. You know, pull some of this shadow in here. You could build this trees. This is very understated here, and you know, you might, I mean, start looking at the areas, and I might want to take a little bit of the blue and white. Let me get just a little bit of that blue and white and just drag down at this angle so you see that in and out, undulation in and out of the trees, but that you see that slope better. And that's the kinds of stuff that I speak English. That's the kind of stuff that I look at here towards the end of the painting. And those slopes and stuff, maybe a little bit, you know, look for maybe a little bit of a light hit right there. Here. Hits right there. See how much interest that drives back there? As long as it doesn't take away from the elk, you can do it. A little bit of that light hit. But, you know, you could just play with that forever and ever. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I have a really neat... I've had some people want me to paint some different flowers, so I'm going to do an azalea with a bumblebee, and so I'll bring that up here probably in 2 days because I have it almost done. And then I'm going to paint a beginning azalea set for over on our Paint It Simply channel. So if you haven't gone over to the Paint It Simply channel, that channel is made for more beginning lessons. So I'm going to paint a very beginning azalea to look for light and shadows and get those petal structures and stuff like that. and then we'll do the more advanced one here on this particular channel, okay? So go over to Paint It Simply. If you haven't gone over there and subscribed to that, make sure you subscribe to that so you get notified when I come out with these videos and stuff. But hopefully you enjoyed this painting. This was a lot of fun. I had a great time. It took us, what, not quite 3 hours, somewhere like that, to paint that. But what I was hoping to get it done is I could have a little more light right there. I won't do that. Okay, but anyway, it's a lot of fun. Thanks so much, guys, and for those of you that comment. And like I say, I can't always get out to every single one of those comments, but I start my day every day before I come in here and paint with you. I start my day by reading all of your comments, so I read them all, and I really enjoy them. So keep them coming and stuff. And if you have any kinds of questions or special requests or something like that, just drop them into the comments and I'll get to them, okay? Thanks very much, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.